Okay, cool. So this is the next part now. So what we said was we finished that, and we want to generate this page, and we want this page to dynamically be generated by Django. So we only want to design one template, and we want it to call our what do you call it? We want it to call our data for us. So to begin with, I'm just going to start saying what data that I want, and I want to prepare that in a function, and then I'm going to start using again, you know, some Bootstrap and some HTML to try and make it look a bit nice. So this first bit, that's already done for me, isn't it? Because I've got that in my base template. I'm literally only going to have to work on this and then what goes into these sections here. So and we get to use our API here as well. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to leave that for now. I'm going to borrow some of that actually. Let's close that there. Let's go to our views. And if you remember, we created the home. So now let's create another view. And let's call this one film review. Film review. And we need to pass in a request. And now what we're going to say is let's just do our return. So return render request, and we're going to say this is going to be in the reviews in the template folder, obviously reviews slash, and we'll call this one film detail, or no, let's just call it film review. Stick to what it is. Film review .html, which we're going to create, and then we're also going to pass through a context, but we'll come back to that in a bit. Okay, so let's go to our templates, which should be here, and in this templates folder, let's create a new file, and let's call it, we said it was going to be called film review .html. Boom. So let's open that up. In fact, you know what, because I'm lazy, what we'll do is, actually we don't need any of that stuff. I'm just going to grab all of that, and let's take that and let's stick it in there. Don't need that. Okay, now this one's going to be slightly different because we're not going to need that card. Our cards here are going to be different. So we don't need that, and we don't need a for loop either, so we'll just get rid of that. So here, reviews homepage, here we're going to have something else. Here we're going to have the name of the film, so we'll come back to that. So we'll say title of film. We're going to film that in dynamically. We'll come back to that. And then what we need is how we're going to lay it out. So the first thing I want is I want a picture. Okay, so I'm going to create a column with 2 rows. So let's create a div for that. So div, and I'll come back to that in a second actually. So that's going to be for my first row, and my first row is going to have the image and then some details about the film. Okay, and then underneath it I just want the review. So underneath it here I'm just going to create another div, and I'll say what kind of div it is. When I look at Bootstrap, I'll decide how I want to lay this out. But here is going to go my review. So I'm going to say review text goes here. Okay, and then this one I want to divide up into 2. So we have the image and then we have details about the film. But that's basically my page now. So I can save that. Okay, and let's save that as well. So now in this one, in the views, I'm just going to add something else. I'm going to add the fact that I want a second argument to come through along with the request. So as well as the URL, what I want is some more information to tell me what film it's going to go to. So I'm just going to say review, whoops, my bad, review dash ID. Okay, and then let's make some space. Here I'm going to say that I want to get review detail, it's just what I'll call it, review detail equals, we're going to use something called get object or 404, and it's going to be it has to come from our table, and our table was reviews. Our table was reviews, and what we want is the primary key for that, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So the primary key is going to be what we refer to as review ID. So I'll put that there. Okay, and now let's make a bit more sense of that. So before I do that, I've also got to import that. So I'm going to say from Django shortcuts, as well as importing render, we're also going to import get 404 object, get object of 404. So basically what you're saying is here it's either going to generate a 404 or it's going to find an object based on a primary key from this table reviews. Okay, and the reviews, we've already imported it, so here let's save that. If we go to our models, okay, now when we created our tables, we didn't create a primary key, and obviously in lessons when we talk about databases and we talk about creating tables, there's always got to be a primary key, but Django does that for us automatically. Okay, so we haven't had to do that. So it is there, we just don't see it here, and we can override it, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to let Django do its thing. So that's going to be a primary key. So our next step is we're going to go back to our home page for a second, and we're going to look at this button that says read more, read review. Okay, and we're going to add something here. So what we're now going to do is we're going to get Django to try and generate something for us. We're going to say that we want a URL to be, so basically when they click on the button, we want the URL to be, let's use those these percentage symbols. We're going to say the URL is oh no, actually I can't do this one yet. Let's go to our URLs first, and in our URLs we've got to create, oh, is this the wrong URLs? Which one? Yes, I opened up the URLs from the project. I need to open up the URLs from our app, our reviews app. So we're going to say path. Okay, so we're creating a new path, and in our path we're saying that this begins with an integer. So this is an integer, and it is going to be review underscore ID. Okay, and when they do that, we're basically going to say views dot the view that we were going to call up. What did we call it again? Let's go back to views. We called it film review, so let's borrow that. Film review, go back to our URLs, so it's going to be film review, and let's give it a name. So the name is going to be film review. Okay, now what's happening here is we're telling Django that when someone types in the address and the ID, so an ID number, that is going to refer to that means that it's going to have to load up the views file, and it's going to go to the function that says film review. Okay, and it's going to load up what it says from the film's review. So but that's going to correspond to, so as well as it going to film review, it's going to pass in this here. This is going to be an argument that we're going to pass through, and I mustn't forget to put a comma on the end because this is a list and there might be more coming. So let's save that, and now that I've got a name here, I can go back to my home page and I can say, right, so the URL is going to be, I'm just going to refer to the name, which I said was film review. Sorry. And as well as the name, we're also going to pass another point. So we're going to pass through what what did we say? Film, no, hold on, what did we say it was? We said it was review ID. Okay, so no, sorry, I'm not doing that. I'll come back. It's just going to be called review dash ID. So if you remember when this for loop was done here, okay, so we said for review in reviews, okay, pull up the image, okay, from the database, and then next we said pull up the title, and then pull up some truncated words from the review. Okay, now we're also saying that the URL is going to be it's going to be the film review function and whichever review that we're currently on in that for loop. So just like in Python, when we say things like when we say things like for I in range 1 to 5 or whatever, we're saying that whatever the review is, the ID of that review from the table, and obviously like I said to you before, we don't see the ID field, but it's there. Okay, so whatever ID we're on, basically that is going to be our argument, okay, that gets passed into our view here. So that is going to be our review ID. Okay, so then when we click on it, it will add onto our URL, it will add whatever the homepage name is, / and then the number of the ID. Okay, so the review ID will go on the end, and then it will call that function. So let's try that now. So now that we've done that, we've got review detail. Let's save that. Is our thing running? Yep, this is still running. So let's try it out. Let's refresh that page. Now if I click on Back to the Future, it does take me to a page. Okay, so that's, we know it's working. And if you look at here, it's got /1. So that's true, okay, because Back to the Future was the first film that I entered into the database. So it's ID number 1. If I go back, and I think the last one I did was the Joker, so that should be number 6 really, and it's number 6. So it has worked. Okay, so it's using this because of what review we're on in the loop, and it's passing that ID number as an added argument into that film review. So we're going here and it's calling this function called film review, and the added argument is coming directly from that loop. That's the review ID, and the review ID is literally the primary key within my model for this table. Okay, so let's go back now that we've got that. Okay, so we know what the review ID is. Okay, so we say review detail. Now what we want to do is we want to start pulling out some more information again. So I'm going to say title equals, actually I'm going to change that. I'm going to say review, and I'm going to say review equals from the reviews table, I'm going to say objects, and then we're going to use filter. I'm going to say filter, and the filter is basically going to be blah, blah, blah. Oh. The filter is going to be, where are we? Nope. Right, it's going to be get ID, and the ID is going to be equal to review detail, I believe. Actually, I don't have to do that. I could just say review ID. No, I'll leave it at that. No, I won't. Yes, I will. No, I won't. I'm going to say review ID. So that there is going to be my primary key. So it's going to get all the objects. So it's going to look in the reviews and the objects, and it's going to get just the object from that ID. So from then, I could say that the title is equal to review dot, it should be title, and then, oops, why did I do that? Should be lowercase. And then I can say, what other information did we have? Let's go back to our models here. I'm probably going to want the author, so I'm going to repeat this a few times. So I'm going to say, let's borrow that. Let's say author equals, oh, I've got two equals now. It's going to be author, my bad, and then let's spell that properly. We're going to say publish date, pub date equals pub date. I believe it was pub date. Yeah, pub date. We need body. We need IMDb reference, and we don't need the image, right? Yes, we do. Pub date. We're going to say IMDb underscore ref equals IMDb underscore ref, and then we need body equals body. Okay, so what I've done is I'm effectively taking all this data because I'm going to need it when I'm doing my, when I want to pull it up onto my page. Oops, wrong one, models. I think I've got everything. Let's take the image as well. So let's say image equals image. Okay, and then what we want to do is, now that we have this information, we're going to pass this information into our page, because we want to use it on the page. But the way I'm going to do it this time is, rather than pass them all in one by one, because that could be a long time, that could be a lot of data here, I'm just going to say context equals, and let's make a dictionary, and then we're going to do it for each one. So this could take a bit long, but let's put context in there, and then here we're saying review. Let's say then, so review, comma, title, it's going to be title, comma, author, oops, let's not do that, it should be like that. Okay, so I've copied the rest in, and I just want to test it out now. So let's go back to that page that we created, the film review one, and let's try taking some of this data from here, this context that we're now pulling through into the page, and let's see if we can do something with it. So first off, I'm going to create a column, and on Bootstrap I've pulled this out from the page, and I think this kind of looks okay for me. So I want the image to be on the left hand side actually, so I want that small column to be where the image is, and then some other details to be on the right. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to copy that actually, let's borrow that rather than write it all out. Let's go to our film review, and that's going to be our first row. So let's replace that with that. Let's put that back where it should be, and let's nest those further. And like I said, I want that to be on the left. Let's see, boom. Okay, and then let's get rid of that, and that will be that, and this will be that. Okay, now here I wanted my image, so I'm going to say image, and the image URL is going to be what was it? From our context, it was going to be, I believe it was just image dot URL. Let's save that and let's give it a go. Will that work for us? Let's open up Back to the Future, and it has worked. All right, cool. So at the moment though, that's a lot bigger than I want it to be. So what I might do, and then obviously my reviews at the bottom. Interesting. Okay, so that's worked, but let's resize that. So our image like that, and here let's do a height of no more than, let's say, 300, and let's do a width of no more than, let's say, 150. What does that do to our picture? Let's save it, load it again. Oof. Okay, it needs to be wider. Let's make it 200. That's not too bad, that will do. Okay, so it doesn't look too skewed, hopefully. So now what we want in the second column is we're going to want some details. So let's think about what details we want. So here we spoke about, we just said film details, but that's not really enough, is it? So I want some more stuff. I want to be able to say, right, let's put, to start with, film title. So let's say, you know what might be good as well. Okay, so from the Bootstrap website, I think what might be good is if we use something called a Jumbotron, and I think this one would be fine for that. So I want to take this, and I want to stick that inside the second column. So I'm going to go here, and inside the second column I'm going to put that again. We always seem to need to, that's better. Okay, so now inside our second column we've got that, and we want where it says fluid Jumbotron, I want to change that to a title. So it's going to be, I believe it's just going to be title, like that. Test that out. Yeah, that works. Back to the Future. And then underneath it, now this part, I want to start populating it with some information. Okay, so let's take that back, and then here we'll do this. Okay, and then we'll start saying things such as, what did we have here under views? We had author, that's interesting, author, publication date, that's all you need, isn't it? Author, publication date. Okay, so let's say author. So what I'll do is I'll say let's go here. In fact, let's go back to here. I thought what might be good as well is if we use more from here and we make it look, if you look around the Bootstrap website, there is quite a few design ideas that you can use, and I think this is good, kind of like an inline list where I can put all that information in. So I'll do that. That's not too bad looking. What's the difference between this one and this one? I don't really know. Let's take it. Yeah, I think I'll take that. So I'll put that in my film review, and that will go to begin with. Actually, yeah, that will go there. No, you know what? Yeah, that will go there. And let's take these and let's nest it. It doesn't seem to copy paste very well. Cool. Okay, so the first one, I want it to be author. So I'm going to say author. Spell properly, please. And actually, let's say review author. Review author, and then we'll do that, and then we'll do curly brackets, and it should just be author. And then the next one, the next item of data could be publication date of the review. So we'll say review date equals pub date. And then the last piece, what did I say it was? Did I have another one? I don't think I did. Publication date, author. Yeah, that's cool. So I only need two of these columns. So I'll delete the third one like that. Okay, so let's save it. Let's go back to our page again. Refresh. Not bad, not bad. Okay, okay. I think we can do a bit more here actually. Okay, so now on the next one, underneath here, I want some more details, but to be honest, I don't want that coming from my table anymore. Now it's time for me to start using some more data from the API. Okay, so let's go back to views. Okay, and then what we do now is we go back to what we did in that Python lesson we did a few days ago. Okay, so when we use the request, we used this API. So we use this API where we imported a URL, and then we used it to pull information from the web page. And for example, we took film title and ratings, okay, and then we printed that out using Python. What we now want, because the backend of Django is Python anyway, I can take that almost as it is and I can stick it straight into here. Okay, so just like here, I'm going to say import requests and JSON. Okay, so let's do that. So at the top here, I'll say import requests, spell properly, requests and JSON as well. Okay, oh, by the way, if you haven't installed request onto your what do you call it, your environment, you're going to need to. So if I push Control and C, you're going to have to say pip install requests. I think mine is already installed. Yeah, because it says already satisfied, but that's how to do it if you're not sure. Okay, so now that we've done that, this, as you can see, this function is getting a bit bigger, isn't it? But that's fine. So now we want to bring in some of this stuff here, literally as it is, but we do have a few small issues. Okay, so basically when I use this in Python, okay, the whole URL was used. So you can see that the request, the URL also includes the reference ID, but I don't want that in this. So I'm going to make some changes here. I'm going to copy that as it is. So URL is that. I'll even take the ratings actually. Let's take that in. And let's pass it straight into here. Actually, what I'll do is I'll take you back through the website, because I just thought to myself, some of the people watching this video may not have followed the previous video that we did. So if that's the case, okay, we use a website called Rapid API. Let's talk about it really briefly, because I'm conscious this video is getting very long. Okay, so this is a website you probably have to sign up to. I'm not sure it works if you don't. And I'm going to do a search. And what this basically does is, these are lots of APIs written by people, sometimes by companies themselves, to extract data from websites that you can then pass into your own website. And it's very important that you, if you hover over them, you can see what kind of APIs they are. So for example, what they can collect for you, like here it says get title, get topcast, etc. But on the bottom right it says that this top one is a freemium, and what that basically means is some of the requests that you can call using this API are probably going to be free, and there might be some that you have to pay for, or that it might be a case of a certain amount of requests a day from your website. So for example, a certain amount of times that a particular page is loaded up that calls the API, maybe 100 or 200 might be free, and then thereafter you might have to pay a small amount. If we scroll down to the next one, this is the one that we used. This one's completely free. And this one will do exactly what we need as well. So let's borrow that. Let's open this one up. Load, please. Okay, now there are two APIs here. One of them's a search, one of them's the film. So the search one, you would have to put a keyword in and it will see if it can find the result for that. We know exactly what film we want and we already have our IDs. So I'm going to use the film one. And then at the top here, I'm going to click on Python and we're going to click on requests. And literally the code that I want is right there. Okay, I'm just going to make a few changes. So I'm going to take that. I've already imported requests, so I don't need that anymore. And let's go back to Atom. Okay, and I'm going to paste that here. Let's tidy that up. Okay, so in fact, let's do one more thing. Let's go. Let's copy that as well. Print response text. Okay, so let's put that in there. Oops, it's gone too far. Okay, and now let's see what happens when we load the page up. So what happens when we load the page up is we know we've already got some of that information there is being pulled from the database, from our table, and it's being passed into the context. Let's save this. And actually, the server's not running, so let's run the server. Oh, no module named request. Is that right? Did I say request? Hold on. Okay, it should say requests with an S. So I made a mistake there. That should be fine. Let's save it. And does it work now? Now it works. Okay, so let's load it back up. So now if I refresh this page, what it's going to do is it's going to run through my function, which will actually carry out an API request. Okay. Oh, local variable response reference before assignment. And what was my response? Response.text. Oh, let's see. Okay, and I can see what I've done there actually. So when I put the print statement in, and I said and it said print response. Unfortunately, rookie mistake. We ran that code. We ran that line before we ran the response itself here. So now, hopefully that should work. Let's try that again. Let's load it. Let's refresh. Okay, so now the page is loaded up, and now you can see it's not done anything, okay, but it has run through. Oops, it has run through. It has run through all of it. So because we called that page up, we loaded a page. It did read that. It read that. It read that, and then it actually did that. But obviously, that's printed here in the command line. So it's done this search for whatever that film was, and I think, to be honest, that was Inception. Yeah. So now I've got a whole bunch of data that I can play with in the same way that I loaded up a whole bunch when I passed the review ID here, okay, and I got all this data from one record in a table, and that's what we did here. What we now want to do is we now also want to take this data, okay, and instead of printing it out, we want to do something else. So we want to start using some of that data, for example, things like IMDb rating and a few other bits. And let's see what we can do. Okay, let's jazz up our page a bit more. The problem is the this bit here has already got the URL passed through, and we don't want that. Okay, so I want to get rid of that, and I want to add the URL dynamically from here, from the IMDb reference that's already inside this function. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to use another Python library. Oops, let's minimize that for a second. So we're also going to import something called URL lib, which we're going to use to join this URL with the new one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this one. So I'm going to call it API URL, and underneath it I'm going to say URL So this is gonna be my URL now, because obviously the response here calls on the URL. So I need to rename that one, because I'm gonna make this one the URL that's called. And I'm going to say URL lib dot pass dot URL join, and we're just going to tell it what we want it to join. So we want it to join API URL along with IMDb ref. Okay, so that should work. Okay, so right now then it should say, it should take that and it should just join the reference from the database, and hopefully it should print out exactly what we want. So let's try that here. Let's print URL. Okay, so if I click on save and I go back to here and I click on refresh, it's refreshed, no errors. When I come back, let's load this back up, and right at the bottom there I can see it's done it. So it's loaded up my page and the exact address that I want as well. Okay, so that's done for me as well. Now that I've got that, now I've got the API running. That means that every time I pick on a separate film, it's going to use the API to load up into this section, onto the page that it's loaded up. It's going to load up the data just for the film that we're on. Okay, which is now dynamically generated every time we click on one of the buttons from the home page on one of the reviews. So what data do I want from that? Okay, so actually now we want to say JSON, because we want this information to be passed into our Python program so it's readable. And then now we want to start saying things like, okay, rating. So my rating is going to be I believe response, and I think it was rating, but we'll double check in just a moment. So if I go to here, let's open this up, and if we click on test endpoint, so what it's done here is it's give me a run through of the information that's come through. So my response rating should tell me the rating of the film now, and I'm also going to add rating votes, and let's add that there, rating votes. So that now this information I don't have to put in, so I'm going to say votes equals response curly square bracket, that's the rating votes. What else could we take? We could take duration, year it was released. I'll take both of those actually. So I'm going to throw a few things in, and then I'm going to chuck it into my website, and then here I can actually say, what else we got here? Okay, we got actors. Are these the cast? Yeah, these are the cast. So, to be fair, I'm not going to go through the cast. Technical specs, I'm not. To be honest, I think I've got the information I need there. I've got length, year, rating, and votes. And you know what? Maybe I can put the plot in as well, and that'd be fun. So let's see. I'm gonna pause it while I quickly do that. Okay, so I've added a few more in, and now what I really need to do is just put that into my context as well. So I'm gonna hit some more in here. I think that's done. Now let's try and add some of that stuff in. So if we go back to our film review page, so at the moment it looks like this. So I want now a new row with some of that information in it. So actually I might do something similar to this, but what's best? Let's see. I'm just going to make it a normal list actually. So I'll go back to here, and I think I want a normal list, something a bit like that. Let's take it. Let's just take this. Let's borrow that. It's a lot easier just to copy and paste stuff from Bootstrap than to do it all myself. So that was the p tag. Outside of that p tag is where I want to put this. Maybe what I'll do is put in a new p tag in a second. Okay, so the first one I was going to say IMDb rating is rating. Is it IMDb rating out of 10? And I'm also going to say from votes, and let's do that. And here we put in another. What was this one? I believe this one was votes. Let's double check. So the first one was rating, next one was votes. Let's do year of release. Like that. And let's do another p tag. And let's do plot. Here I can say plot and then break. Let's see how that looks when we run this. Refresh. Not too bad. Okay, so IMDb rating 8.5 out of blah blah blah. And I've got a plot in there. Now it might be a bit better actually if I was to make the picture bigger. So I've limited that to, I'll play with that later. So now what I really want is I just want to change this bit here to say review. So let's remove that. And let's say this was going to be what again? This was going to be author review. And let's put a break in because it won't do itself, will it? Break. Okay, and underneath that we're going to say, was it body? I believe it was body. Let's save that. Let's open it back up and then refresh, and it's done it. Okay, so I've now got my review for Back to the Future. That looks fine. So I suppose the next thing I've got to do is I've got to be able to, oh no, I didn't do title of film. Let's do title of film at the top. So let's go back to the top where it says title of film, and let's put in boom boom title. Save, go back. All good. Okay, that's not looking too bad. And now let's play with the let's go back to the base template, which would be here, base template, and we need to get rid of some of those navigation bar items because they're just not in the right place. Yeah, so home should take us back to, and this is where we use that skill again that we did earlier. Actually no, I think it's just one curly bracket. So we want to say URL, and the URL was, I believe it was home. Let's double check. If we go to URLs here, yep, it was home, so that should take us to home. And really and truly I think that's the only link I need right now. So I'll leave, what I'll do is I'll leave another one in there for now. I'll get rid of that. I will just put a dot in there because I'm not using anything, and if I want to I'll come back and put that in later, or I can delete it. Also I could have a title for my webpage. I don't know, film club, film review club, or whatever. Yeah, so let's save that. Let's go back to our page again. Let's refresh. Okay, so now that I've got that, if I click on home, it's worked. It's taking me back to here. Let's try another film. Okay, let's try the Joker. Good. It's taking me to that. Yes, the last one was 8.5, so it is correctly pulling the data. And I think it was released July 2020. No, oh no, yeah, that's right. So that's not when release date. Release date was 2019. Go back to home again. Let's try Inception. Okay, and as you can see right now, what we have is, you know, with a little bit of work, we've created a website that dynamically generates each page based on information that is pulling from an API, and information is pulling from our own tables. Okay, so just to end this video then, you know, the next thing we're going to be looking at is we do need to add a few more bits in. So we want this website to be used by anyone, and at this point, if I want to add a review, I have to go into the back end of things as an administrator, but I don't want that. So, you know, part of my film club, the idea was that different people can make reviews and, you know, they can post it. So what we want then is we're going to have a sign in and a sign out link from here. And then we're going to create a form where people can submit their reviews from the front end of the website and not the administrative backend. So join us for the next video and we'll carry on there.